Can you donate your embryo to a friend? Well, look at you, Mr. Miss Generous. Of course you can. But let's talk about how. Hello, I'm Corlandos Scott, and I'm an assisted reproductive technologies attorney in Los Angeles, and that simply means my practice revolves around helping people grow their family through assistance. That could be surrogacy, egg donation, or, as we're talking about today, embryo donation. In this episode, we're going to look at what you can do with your embryos. What about preserving them and using them later on? We'll look at options for disposing of them. And we'll end by looking at some options for donating them. Let's get into it. Ultimately, your embryos are yours. And like anything and everything else that you own, you have the right to do with them what you wish, up to a certain extent. If you want to use it and have a baby, you can use it and have a baby. Whether or not you're using the help of a surrogate or a gestational carrier, or whether you're carrying them yourselves. You can also store your embryos for future use. You can freeze the embryos, that's what we call it. You can cryopreserve them, that's the technical term. And you can typically do that for as long as you need until you're ready to grow your family again, have a sibling, or make other decisions about what you want to do with these frozen embryos. Now, one thing to think about though, when you're thinking about freezing your embryos is, it ain't free. Yeah, fertility clinics charge storage fees, and that amount ranges anywhere from several $100s per year up to a couple $1,000s per year, depending on the facility. Now, other clinics also limit how long they will keep your embryos in storage. So you want to think about that whenever you're going through the IVF process and creating embryos. If you're storing them with the clinic that you use to create them, you want to know, how long do I have to keep these things on ice here? Now, you may have to look for a second facility or a cryo bank or something like that to store your embryos if it comes to that point. And when you do that, you also have to keep in mind that there may be additional fees like transfer fees, travel fees, because you just can't put these things in an igloo cooler and take them to the next location. There's definitely some serious medical transportation that has to happen with that. Now let's talk about disposition of embryos, or how we dispose of embryos. One of the common ways is to thaw the embryo and let the embryo demise on its own, and that's simply disposing and destroying the embryo. To accomplish this, you simply sign a form with the instructions to the clinic that you want the embryos destroyed, and you tell them when, either immediately or after a certain period of time, but you want to provide them with instructions about how you want to proceed with the disposition of your unused embryos. This is something that I think is very important because I've talked to a number of doctors and egg banks and cryopreservation facilities that say they have many embryos that have been left by people who went through the IVF process, and there's no expiration date on them. There's no instructions as to what to do. And this led one doctor to, even when he retired, he brought home his cryo tanks and put them in his garage. Why did he do that? Because he didn't have clear instructions on whether he could destroy the genetic material, and he did not want to be sued if he simply retired, unplugged the tank, and all of the embryos demised, and someone came back later on and said, hey, I want my embryo, and he had to say, I retired and turned off my tanks. So please keep this in mind when you create your embryos. Give specific instructions and timelines around what you want the clinic to do with your genetic material once they've frozen it and stored it. Now, here's something novel that I've only seen happen one time, but it may be something you're interested in. Check if the clinic may be able to give you the thawed embryos, and if you want, you may be able to bury the embryos and hold a funeral or some type of ceremony to just really mark the end of that journey. Now, before you do this, check your local laws about disposal of biological tissue, because that might complicate things altogether. But it's an option, again, that I've only seen once, but I thought it was very interesting when I heard about it. There's also something else that I've only seen once or twice, and it was very interesting to me what these parents decided to do with their remaining embryos. There's another form of destruction or disposition of unused embryos, which is more sentimental than anything else I've ever seen, in my opinion. And it's called a compassionate transfer. And that's when the embryos are transferred to your uterus at a time in your cycle when the pregnancy is pretty much impossible to achieve. And some people argue that this procedure is unnecessary, it's illogical, but other people see this as an ethical extension of fertility care that respects really the patient's autonomy and the patient's psychosocial health. So if that's something that you're interested in, talk to your medical provider about that to see if that's a way that you could demise the embryo, which is transferring at a time when the pregnancy is definitely not likely to happen in a compassionate transfer methodology. Now let's finish this up by talking about donating your embryos. Before we talk about donating your embryos though, I want to know something. Do you like the video? Did you get anything out of it? If you do, click the share button, share it with somebody. Go ahead and be social. After all, you're on social media. So yeah, share it, and while you're at it, go ahead and like and subscribe. You click that little bell beside it, you even will get notifications whenever I release new videos, so you won't miss a thing. So how can you donate your embryos? Well, one way to donate your embryos is you can donate them to medical research. I mean, that's how we got here in the first place, because somebody somewhere at some point in history researched how to have babies outside of sexual intercourse. And that's how the entirety of assisted reproductive technologies was born. So your donation to medical research could help further the science and make things even better for somebody or a hopeful parent down the line. You can also donate it to other people who would like to have a baby or maybe can't have a baby due to some medical reason. And by all these, it means that you can do whatever you want with the embryos. You can donate to anyone, whether a stranger or a family member or even a friend or even an enemy if you want to. I mean, that would be weird, but it's your prerogative. So long story short, yes, you can donate your embryos to a friend. Just one quick thought on this. Whether you donate your embryos to a stranger or to a friend, even a family member, make sure you have a written agreement in place so nothing comes back to haunt you or your friends later on. You want to consider things in that embryo donation like, can your friend or family member, if they don't use all of them, donate them to someone else? Are you going to donate all of your remaining embryos to that person? Or are you going to donate one or two out of a number of them? Which ones are you going to donate? Different embryos have different grades depending on how healthy or how viable they are. So which graded embryo are you going to donate? There's a lot of questions you want to look into when it comes down to the logistics of donating your embryos, but it's completely possible. Now, if you want to donate your embryos to a friend, make sure you talk to a third-party reproduction attorney. Not just any attorney, but an ART attorney, like somebody I know. But you want to work with somebody who's licensed in the jurisdiction that you can work in. But here's the thing, just know that you have options. If you want to know more about embryo donation, I'll put a link to I'll just put my email. How about that? I'll throw my email in the bottom of this video just for you so you'll know exactly how you can reach out to me and we can start a conversation about how you can help somebody else grow their family through your generous embryo donation. See you in the next episode.